Hello, Namaste. Welcome to Samvaad. Abir Space and Pothi brings you yet another session of interesting conversation. Abir Space. Here we talk, create, enhance, and set the discourse around art and its influencer. Today we are going to talk to one of them, Aniket Bhagwat. I'm going to have a word with him today, and he has a long, lengthy profile, so I'm going to try and accommodate everything I can in my brief introduction. Aniket Bhagwat is principal at Prabhakar B a third generation practice, which by most count in India is best known for its landscape and environmental design firm, and is equally true for his architectural profile. He spends half of his working time on outreach activity that includes an initiative for cultural programming in the city, another on a 100 city parks project, LEAF, research arm of the firm, in which they publish research articles and paper on ecology, landscape design, and urbanity. The rest devoted to complex range of master planning, landscape design, architectural projects, and which is spread across India. Encouraging meaningful dialogue between professionals has resulted over years in him setting a forum like 12 on 12 or the Architects Retreat. Aniket, I hope I do just. I'm nervous when you're around. So
You
I
shouldn't be.
welcome to Samvaad. Uh,
Thank you
welcome
very
to
much.
Samvaad. Yeah.
Thank you.
So welcome to Samvaad, Aniket bhai, and we are going to start with a question which we keep asking each other whenever we meet after this post-COVID era, and we said, "Oh, what did you do last summer?" So I'm going to ask you the same. What did you do last summer? Maybe we can start with
You
some
know,
light question.
strangely, the answer is I didn't do anything different than what I've been doing in the summers before. So
Okay.
we've been working. I mean, so it sounds very strange given the way that the world has been around us to try and strike a note of normalcy. But the fact of the matter is that through this entire 1 year, we've actually just lost 1 days of work. And we worked through. The only difference was that we worked from home. We couldn't come to the office for the first 2 months, but after that, we've been coming to the office. So it's a long story, but for us, the idea of defining a sort of intellectual normal has occupied us a fair amount. And I'm carefully not using the word new normal. I'm saying an intellectual normal. But yes, we've been working. So thank you.
Great. And as we all know, you know, you said we'll not call it new normal, but a new awareness, a new intellectual normal. You think has changed you somewhere in some manner? Maybe your practice, maybe your office routine, maybe your schedule. Is that it has changed you in a way?
So, I mean, just to give you a little quick backdrop, and I'll try and make this quick. So, while this happened, at some point of time, we decided to produce a document in the office that was called Design in the Times of COVID. This is a PDF that we had sent out to many friends and professionals, really sort of focusing on what what is the kind of responses that we as partial designers must have when you're dealing with these present times. And now recently, we've been working on a talk that I have to give in Dublin virtually in February, which is also about landscape design in the times of COVID. And while writing the talk and working with people in the office, we actually asked ourselves this question of new normal. And we said, is it that we have changed the ways that we are living lives, or are we revisiting the way that we would have liked to live life? And we are now beginning to find value in that way of looking at life. So I think what COVID has really done is that it has given all of us the strength to believe that there were certain ways in which we looked at the idea of life, that the capitalist tendencies or the way that economic tendencies were denied us that thinking. And COVID has sort of brought that right up in the fore. So it's okay to live life exactly the way that we thought one should be living life. So I don't think it's a new normal. I think it's really finding the strength in the old.
Yeah. In fact, that was my next question. That how do you think the art and design will move post COVID? But I think. you addressed it a little bit in your previous answer, but still, I think I would like to ask it that how do you think the art and design move post-COVID? Do you think it will be change in their perception, change in their psyche, change in the material availability, change in be available to the situation? How it's going to change and how it's going to pan out? What do you think?
Well, I think both about design and also about the art. So whether it's visual art or it's performing art, so any form of art, um, I think it's time really for those who are sort of the vocal supporters of this discipline of art or spatial design to really come out in the open and state the importance of these disciplines. I think in this last 1 year, we've all been sort of helped and nourished by the arts that have been around us. We've all enjoyed the nuances of what good design. For the first time, I think people really started appreciating the nuances of what good design is. People started enjoying the nuances of what does it mean to be surrounded by great art. I think this is actually a chance for the world of arts and chance for the world of design to stand up there very boldly and get everybody to notice them the way that they perhaps were not noticed in the past. This is their time to do a clarion call because the world is now ripe and ready to absorb the real meaning of what it means to be engaged with the art. So I can only see that getting better for both art and design. In the short run, we will complain that finances are not there, money. But that to me, you know, that's really not the story. The real story is this is going to give art and design a boost, which the earlier normal for sure would not have.
Perfect. If I may ask, because your projects, architecture projects, are as good as huge art installation. I just fell in love with the buildings when I come across them. One of them is Devi Art Foundation near New Delhi. But I would like to ask this because I want my young artist, designer, and whoever is witnessing this discourse that how do a senior designer like you incorporate art at what stage in his project, and what is his perception? What is his process to include art in his project? So, if I may ask, at what point of designing process you'd like to incorporate art in your project, and how do you introduce that to the client? Because it's as a professional designer, it's a huge responsibility of a client also to carry forward your vision. So how do you even dialogue that with your client, and how do you manage to do that so beautifully for so many years?
Okay, so first of all, thank you for being kind about the work that we do, and thank you for saying good things about it. Um, I also have to confess that it's not as if we've always been successful. I mean, we've been successful in the odd and off project, but it's not as if we've been consistently successful. Having said that, I think that we look at the idea of art or the insertion of art or the embedding of art in projects at two levels. First, I think as a design office, we are hugely invested in our understanding of the ideas and processes of art. And hence, you will begin to find these cultural processes being reflected just in our designs itself, just in the narratives that we will do. So, if we are doing a public park in Bombay, we will use the public park in Bombay to talk about cultural narratives. We will use it to talk about Bombay's connection with the maritime history of Bombay, or that Bombay was seven islands. And we'll sort of build those narratives as part of design. We would do that in the art building in Baroda or whatever it is. That's what we love to do. We love to be able to tell stories through our work, stories that are larger than the work itself, and we use artistic devices to be able to sort of communicate that story. That's one part. The other is how do we collaborate with people? It I believed very, very strongly that any artistic or creative process is a collaborative process, and it's a collaborative process with everybody. So the architect, the client, the contractor, the mason, the carpenter, the fabricator, and the artist. I think it's really a collaborative process with everybody. And if you come to the table by being able to shed your ego a little bit and not thinking of it as my work or my creation, but think of it as our creation. I think these processes actually become enjoyable. And I think that's the bottom line, to enjoy the process. And if you don't enjoy the process, there's no point doing it. And every time that we've been able to do it, and I must confess, it hasn't been as often as we've liked, but it's been reasonably there for us to feel satisfaction. It's been a fantastic journey because the artist is involved from day one, the client is involved from day one, the conversations are fantastic, everybody's egos are checked out. Yeah, so that's the way to go, I guess.
Okay. You mentioned Bombay National Park, and you also mentioned Baroda Arc Building. So, since we mentioned in our introductory note that you are third generation landscape and environmental design firm, and you have been working with a lot of public spaces, So, especially in India, we normally complain about not having good public spaces. So, yeah, so since you are an environmental design firm and your father has been legendary what should I say? Landscape architect, landscape designer,
Yeah,
horticulturist, and I think I should not even dare to talk about Prabhakar uncle and start talking about his work. But yeah, so you have been born into that family and you have seen and witnessed those journeys. And uh, with your kind of exposure to the world, what do you miss as a society is the public spaces. And as I read in an introductory session, as you're committed to do 100 park in a city, so what should be the approach? What should we do? Is it always about the budget, or it is about the perception? It is about imagination. It's about not being sensitive towards art in public spaces. What do we miss heavily, or where do we went wrong? If I may say so.
so, I think if you want to really break up the answer to that question, I think you can break it up into a few parts. First of all, I think when we look at public spaces in the Indian context, we spend too much time trying to emulate public spaces in other parts of the world, not recognizing that public spaces in India need to deal with a very hot climate or need to deal with a certain way in which we live our urbanity. And it's a slightly messy urbanity. And to deal with our idea of urbanity, we just to learn to deal with our numbers. I mean, we're talking about very different densities. So first of all, I don't think there's too much thinking that happens about what kind of public space. We are very quick to look at Paris for its waterworks or the river, development, or look at somewhere else for Singapore. But you're really not asking the question saying what kind of public space for India. That's number one. Number two, I think that as a system, as a society, and as a governance, uh, we don't seem to understand the ways of making public spaces. So for us, very often public spaces are spectacles. We want the biggest, we want the grandest, we want the tallest. But public spaces are not about spectacles. Public spaces are about creating places for people and families to spend time in, for friends to meet. It's quite simple. It's a social sort of social cause that they need to serve. So I think we are not attuned to think about public spaces in a gentle, empathetic way. The third is, of course, I do believe that skill sets on how to deal with public spaces are grossly missing in this country. There are very few people who understand how to design and imagine public spaces. And and I don't think that the government, the bureaucracy is really well equipped to be able to do it. I think it's a mix of all that. And every time that somebody's been able to deal with this and every time somebody's been able to solve these problems, it has led to good public spaces. And I can talk about many good public spaces in the country designed by designers, which are very, very successful. Delhi is one case in point, and the Delhi Heart in Delhi has been one of my favorite public spaces because it really was built on a nala, and it's a very, very vibrant public space done by Pradeep Sachdev's office. Uh, then is the question of art. I mean, in these public spaces, um, unfortunately, I think the Indian aesthetic sensibilities, at least in the government, leave much to be questioned and desired because for them, the art usually is a statue of a late leader, or it's a very literal idea of, an object that needs to be created. The idea of abstract art or the idea of allowing art to suffuse our lives is something that we are scared as a society. And so, artists are made to do work that is consistent with the bureaucratic demands. So I mean, I've seen artists who have to go and submit maquettes to the secretary or to the local politician. Until the local politician says this is okay, the poor artist doesn't get the chance to create his work, which is unheard of. So I don't think we've matured to that extent. But that's one part of it. But the other is also that we don't invest in a lot of other arts. We don't invest in folk art or wall art. I mean, there's so much of that happening in this country that we are not even looking at that kind of art. So I think things are changing. I mean, I have to admit that, when I look at some towns down south, when I look at Calcutta, when I look at some parts in Bombay, I think things are changing. I mean, people are beginning to get alive to it. I think we will all complain that it could be done much faster, which will always be the case. Yeah, we have a long way to go, but we shouldn't lose hope.
Yeah, we shouldn't lose hope. And when we talk about public spaces, once I remember long back we were talking about, and you said to me, why can't we have interactive spaces and interacting art, where a child can go touch, feel, and experience that art. So I still remember we talk about it. So yeah, we are looking forward and hopeful for such interactive art in near future. Uh, Now let's come back to commercial spaces where a builder who has X amount of budget and he wants to deploy art. So, as a designer, as an architect, I always see that either they are big influencer, they inspire, and they even try to justify the expense of art in a project. So, as a designer, as an architect, do you influence and guide them to buy art, or you try and show them way, or you reach out to artists directly and then just add cost to the project? How do you do that?
So I think that, I see the relationship that anybody must have with art, a very, very personal relationship. I don't see it as a commercial relationship. So, first of all, I would not dare to suggest to a client that he or she should invest or buy art unless I mean, I'll do the conversation. I would say that I think it's important that at some point of time in life, we all get absorbed by the idea of art. And if there were more questions forthcoming from the client about saying what kind of art or show me something, I'd be very happy to create dockets and send it. But I think art also has to be respected. You don't want to shove art down, or you don't want art to go in a place where it's not respected. So I don't think there's any pleasure in my life to be able to say I did this project and I managed to get him to do a big public installation. I mean, it's not going to be respected. He or she doesn't see the value in it. People around it don't see value in it. And I don't think that there's a greater disrespect to art than that. So I'm careful. I would serve, or I would try and serve the cause in every conversation that I do when it comes around that. I'm very, very proactive when people talk to me about bringing in art in their spaces. I will do presentations. I will show them works of artists. I'll do everything. But I will finally leave it to them. I mean, they have to take that call, because that call comes out of personal belief. That doesn't come out of any other commercial sort of considerations. That's the way I look at it. And I think the blessed ones are the ones who manage to get art in their lives and in their places. And those who don't are the unlucky ones. And in time, they will learn, I guess.
Of course, they will, and we'll wish for that. I'm aware of that you yourself has a nice collection of art. In fact, I should say huge collection of art. That you looking for a new house to display. You don't have enough walls. You keep complaining that I don't have enough walls in my house. So when you buy art, as you said, it's a very personal process. When you buy art, what do you think it's your process? How do you engage with that work, and how do you decide to buy that work?
So I think that, everybody, art is a bit like a love affair, that. I mean, there's a phase when you're courting and it's infatuation. And then there's a phase when, it all becomes, the relation gets normalized. And I guess there's also a phase when, you get fed up of it. So I guess it'll go through all these phases. Right now, I'm in this phase of infatuation. I mean, I'm a new collector. I've been just buying art for the last 3 or 4 years. So it's not like I have a historic relationship of buying art. I've been doing it for the last 4 or 5 years. It's just increased in the last couple of years. So right now, I think it's just the sheer pleasure of walking into a space and seeing something that you like, and something that grabs your heart, and saying, can you afford it? And if you can afford it, you buy it. just the other day, I mean, since we're talking about art, I'll send you some photographs. But we bought some two beautiful, stunningly beautiful ceramic pieces, large, very, very large pieces. And the artist had come over to install them in the house. And, we spent hours just going and sitting and looking at it. And the pleasure of doing that is something that I don't want to give up. And I certainly don't want to lose that pleasure. I don't want to become a calculated art buyer in life. I don't want to start evaluating which artist do I have and what is the value of the work. I wish that I can keep collecting art without knowing who the artist and without knowing the value of the work, because for me that's the pleasure. That's that stage I'm in right now. I guess a couple of years down the line, I don't know where I'll be. So yes.
I hope you keep romance going on and keep loving the loving the art and artist. And that brings me to the next question, because of you said a different kind of reality we have been thrown into. We are like we are talking to you on a virtual platform, which I would otherwise never like to do. I would love to sit next to you and have coffee and talk to you. So this is a new habit we have accepted, and that is what has happened with a lot of art functions at that during this time. A lot of shows have gone virtual, and a lot of museums have started virtual tour, and so virtual reality or maybe virtual shows are going to be a new reality for experiencing art. So I'm coming to that. I'm asking you that I would love to ask you that how do you see an artist who cannot reach out and not present his work in physical reality? How do you see it will pan out for an artist and the community and the fraternity uh, to to uh, to go on digital media, and go on digital? And how do you see this leap of faith will take? Where do you see this leap of faith will take us? And you think are we ready to adapt this new normal of this digital era, especially for art, the sensitive subject like art?
Right. So, just to, in this city festival that we helped with UN Metta Foundation a few years back, and off and on, one is still called upon to do a few conversations for it. And just the other day, we were sitting and similarly in a Zoom call, trying to do conversations on what kind of material to invite this time. And of course, it would be digital medium. I think it's a new medium, and I think to start judging its efficacy uh, at this stage is maybe a little early, because we are all grappling with this new medium and what it can do for us and how best can we begin to use it. I think it's going to take some time for us to mature with it. So I would hold my judgment about the efficacy of the medium. But
Okay.
having said that, whatever little that we've done, right? I mean, whether you are on Zoom or this platform, any other platform, uh, there is also the great benefit that now I can reach out to people in different parts of the globe, in different corners of the globe, at the drop of the hat. I mean, I don't have to now. People are more willing to come on the screen, which earlier people would have never been willing to come. So there is that good thing also, that if people understand this new world and are very quickly to come on the screen, and I think that has to be seen as an advantage.
Uh, yeah, I think we are absolutely wanting to take advantage of this new normal. And you have been a witness to Abir India's journey since its forming years, and you have seen and been our guide and philosopher in the process. So I would like to ask you, what do you think of this young contemporary Indian artist, especially since you have seen a few, I think all of Abir's shows, and what do you tell them? What should they do? What do you think? What would be your message to young Indian contemporary artists?
No, so I mean, I think two things. First of all, what you do with the show is amazing, and you know that. So I don't think you need to be told that to really be able to create a show where you're beginning to call people and entries from across the country. And I know how often you've talked about how you've really got kids or artists from the smallest of villages where they don't even have a courier service, or they have nothing, and they have to walk to the nearest town to send the work. And it's from these corners that you're getting work. So if there's a pan-Indian young artists representation in this country, I think the work that you do with Abir would certainly be amongst one of the most valuable that the country is seeing. Um, I think you know too many artists stay hidden, and that's really the sad part. I mean, you it's amazing how often you can get surprised and excited to see an artist in your own town that you didn't know of, or you go to Baroda and you suddenly come across an artist and say, where were you all these days? And the artist was pretty much saying, I was always around, you didn't have time to look at me. So I think the real problem is that we just don't know enough. And if there is some way that Abir can help in getting a credible platform where you can begin to see what's happening in the world in a reasonably real time. So, so supposing there's an artist whose work that I've liked, is it possible for me to stay in touch with that artist's work, let's say on a fortnightly basis or a monthly basis or a twice in a year basis, whatever that interval is? That I need to find an ecosystem that says if I log on to this ecosystem, I'll know what the world of young artists is doing in the country. And I think, you're already working towards that. If you do something like that, I think it'll be fantastic. For the artists themselves, it's difficult to say so. But I think artists should stop being too shy because they tend to be very reticent. They tend to be very, very reclusive. Uh, but you just put out your work there because in whatever forum that you like. I mean, if social media is what you like, then that's what you do it. If there's another forum, put your work out there for God's sake, because that's really the only way the world will notice and get to see it.
I think that's the perfect way to tell young artists that don't be shy, be out there and talk about your art. I think a lot of time they come up with a very beautiful work, but they are not able to articulate, they are not able to explain and talk about it. So there is one gap we also find it is there. So I think you talk amazing about art, and you have given some phenomenal insight about your perception, your world of art, and how you decide and select art. The last thing I would like to ask is, when we are approaching this year 2021, when we are aware of our limitations of being out there and we are planning to go digital, what do you think as an e-gallery? What are the do's and don'ts we should be careful of? Because technology certainly I don't see technology as an enemy of something very sensible and sensitive. But still, there could be chances of losing the sanity of a subject, or maybe losing the sensitivity. So what should we do as a digital or e-gallery that we can maintain the serenity, maintain that authenticity of that art? And when my viewer is looking at the artwork on the screen, what should be his experience? I mean, I just wanted to know your insight or your view on that. I think it would be great if you can throw some light on that.
No, I mean, I think that all of us struggling with the digital medium for sure. And I think we will figure. But let me say one thing that, normally when you walk into a gallery and the work is on the wall, and, if it's an important piece of work, then clearly there's a tape that tells you not to go too close to the work, or, stay 2 feet away from the work and see it from the work. And it's been lit up in a certain way, and you will see that work. I think what the digital medium really allows you to do is to see that work literally from 2 inches away and 3 inches away. And I think that's the great strength of the digital medium, to be able to show work in a level of detail, in a level of sort of micro detail that otherwise is very difficult to see. And I think if digital medium says, look, you will never see the work like this. You will never be able to see this work like this because, you'll see it in the gallery. But here is, if it's a piece of sculpture, you're not going to see it from all the sides, even if it was from a gallery. You're not going to see it from the top. You're not going to see it from below. You're not going to see the texture. So I think to use the digital media not as a sorry replacement, but a very positive alternative to sort of look at artwork. And I think if you take that position of strength as against an apologetic position, I think that the results will be something else. Having said that, I mean, if you're a serious buyer, unless you know the artist, or the artist is already an acclaimed artist, it's unlikely that you're going to buy that work just out of looking at a screen. You want to stand in front of the work, you want to sense that work for some time. I think that still is going to be a challenge. And I think to be in the physical space somehow is going to be something that we're going to have to try and figure out. But at least exposure, I don't see a problem. Acclaimed artists, I don't see a problem. Or young artists who have already, known a little bit and now they're producing no new work, I don't see a problem. But how does one stay in that space? How does one be in the actual space? I think this is going to be a little difficult.
See, very rightly, you said that when you Google an artist whom you know, and you are going to Google him by name. So when I am representing an artist from hinterland of India, maybe a lot of artists are not yet known by their name. So my role here is to give exposure to viewer like you, to give first an exposure to that young boy or girl's artworks. So I'm very hopeful, and I'm trying to do my bit and giving that exposure to Mr. Bhagwat, that you can go on your phone and see that artist's work whose name you probably don't know. So I think that's one thing, and one very much objective of Abir as well, that providing that space for them to represent that work irrespective of their popularity. So we are hopeful for that as well, that probably very young artists also going to get equal opportunity to represent. I mean, have a present, have their presence on this digital gallery. Tell me about your most memorable art experience, and then we may conclude this interview, and we will cherish your experience as well.
Well, I mean, there are many. I think each encounter with art is always something special, and I see it as a very personal encounter. But since we all know this, I must tell you a conversation that I had with Walter once, and this was around the time that Walter had started working on the Arc building, and we debated day in and day out, saying, "What are you going to do, Walter? I mean, what what are you really going to do?" And Walter, anyway, is not a man of too many words. So I think more or less both of us had concluded that the art would be integral to the building. So it wouldn't be something that was stuck on. It would be done as part of the process of the construction itself, which was clear and, which intellectually was very satisfying. And then, but nonetheless, one was worried because one was building this big building and, you had allowed Walter to pretty much do what he wanted in the entire building. So much as one loved him, one wanted to know. And then one day I remember him coming in the same office here, sitting for a long time and smiling at me and saying, Aniket, what I'm going to do? And I said, what? He said, I'm just going to do an apostrophe. I'm going to do like a little comma. So I said, what does that mean? So he said, I somehow think that the purpose of art is just to improve the quality of the discussion. The purpose of art is not to define the discussion. And when you're actually doing this building, you already have a nice narrative, you already have a nice vocabulary, you already have a nice story that is happening. But with that little art insert that I'm going to do all over the building, I'm just going to improve the quality of life. And I said, and I thought that was so beautifully done because, at some level it begins to explain exactly what art is all about. I mean, we all live our lives and then suddenly art comes in our life and it changes our life and it makes it better. It makes it more joyous. It makes it more introspective. We think better because the art comes in our life. And he explained it as only Walter can in the simplest way. And I think it was a memorable conversation.
And if anybody has visited that building, then it's a memorable visit to that building. I have done it long back, and it still lives with me. So thank you so much, Aniket Bhai, for wonderful, wonderful candid talk. And I'm sorry about a few. I'm sorry about that phone call. But yeah, thank you so much, Aniket Bhai, for being with us. And we, as always, a conversation with you is always inspiring, learning, and very fulfilling experience. If somebody might ask me someday what is the most memorable experience you had, I might even mention about this interview. So it's been that. It's been that encouraging and learning experience for me. So thank you so much, and keep romancing art. And we need you around. We need you to be here with us. And you have always been a great supporter of Abir, and you have been great friend to Abir. So just continue your love towards us and continue loving us. And thank you so much, Aniket Bhai, and thank you so much for your time. And here we conclude our Samvaad with you, but we shall and we keep continue doing this Samvaad with you in future as well. And thank you so much, everybody, for being with us. Thank you, Nidish, Ajay, and Manish. Thank you so much.